Ready to unlock your potential.
Let's do it.
This deep dive is all about embracing those what-ifs and pushing our limits, no matter our age, with Gwendolyn Bounds' book, Not Too Late.
And I already know you've got your highlighted copy ready to go.
Absolutely. This book really resonated with me, and I know our listeners are going to get a ton out of it, too.
What's so great about Bounds' approach is that she's not this, super athlete who's been training her whole life.
Right. She's not asking us to run a marathon tomorrow.
Exactly. She's right there with us, figuring it out as she goes.
Like, she even admits to feeling kind of stuck before discovering this whole world of obstacle course racing.
Which, I gotta say, can look pretty intimidating. Have you seen some of those obstacles?
Okay, yeah. Between the mud crawls and the fire jumps, I'm not sure I'm quite ready for all that.
And the spear throwing?
Oh, yeah, forgot about that one. But, that's what I love about Bound's story. She doesn't shy away from those challenges, even if they seem impossible at first.
And it's not just the physical stuff either. Bounds is so open about her struggles with anxiety and fear, especially after her melanoma diagnosis.
That part really got to me, too. It would have been so easy for her to just retreat and play it safe, but instead, she used that experience as fuel.
It's like those obstacles became a metaphor for overcoming any challenge in life.
Absolutely. And speaking of obstacles, let's talk about those firsts that Bounds talks about.
Oh yeah, the power of firsts. Remember what it felt like to ride a bike for the first time or nail that presentation you were nervous about?
The best feeling. It's like those memories are etched into our brains.
Exactly. And Bounds argues that as adults, we tend to lose that sense of novelty and accomplishment. We get comfortable, maybe even a little too comfortable, in our routines.
So trying something completely new, like those Spartan races, can reignite that spark.
It's like hitting the reset button on your brain.
And she didn't just wake up one morning and decide to conquer the toughest Spartan race out there, right?
No. She started small, gradually building her strength and confidence.
Which is reassuring for those of us who aren't exactly gym rats.
It's a good reminder that we all have to start somewhere.
So true. Now, I do have to ask, though, what was it about obstacle course racing specifically that drew her in?
Well, I think for Bounds, it was a combination of things. On one hand, you have the physical challenge. It's demanding and unpredictable.
We're definitely a little bit crazy, right?
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
But it's also about pushing your mental limits.
Yeah.
You have to be able to problem solve on the fly, stay calm under pressure.
And those races can be pretty intense from what I've seen.
Absolutely. And for Bounds, I think that intensity was part of the appeal.
It's like she was testing her limits in every way possible.
Exactly. She talks about how those races forced her to confront her fears, both physically and mentally.
And she learned a lot about herself in the process.
Absolutely. And that's what's so inspiring about her story. It's about so much more than just finishing a race. It's about discovering what you're truly capable of.
Okay, I'm hooked. So how did she go from, everyday life to actually competing?
It's one thing to have the desire, but turning that desire into action, that's the real challenge, right?
Absolutely. Especially with her busy lives, it's so easy to let those good intentions fall by the wayside.
Exactly. And Bounds talks about this in the book. She calls it the "don't let your crop die" principle.
Oh, yes. I loved that analogy. It's about prioritizing your goals with that same kind of dedication a farmer has for their crops, right?
Oh, got it. Bounds was inspired by this farmer she observed who couldn't afford to waste a single minute because his crops depended on it.
It's about treating your goals with that same sense of urgency.
Exactly. It's not about adding more hours to the day, but about making those small pockets of time count.
Like those 10-minute bursts here and there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even fitting in a quick workout while waiting for dinner to cook or, like she suggests, doing squats while brushing your teeth.
Okay, maybe not squats for everyone, but I get the idea. Making those small changes to your daily routine can really add up.
And it's interesting because later in the book, Bounds talks about the power of these atelic activities. Have you heard of that term before?
Atelic. I can't say that I have.
Yeah, it sounds kind of complicated, but it's basically just a fancy way of describing activities that don't have a specific end goal.
So, instead of aiming for a finish line, it's about the ongoing process of learning and improvement.
Exactly. Things like learning a language or playing an instrument. There's always something new to discover, and that can be really motivating, especially as we get older.
I love that. Instead of checking off boxes, you're constantly engaged, always striving to get better.
Exactly. And I think that mindset really ties into the whole Spartan race experience, too. It's not just about finishing a single race, but about continually challenging yourself to improve your time or tackle tackle a tougher obstacle.
Right, and she's honest about the fact that it wasn't always easy. She had setbacks, injuries, those moments where you just want to give up.
Which is why having a solid support system is so important.
Absolutely. She talks about how crucial her wife, Lisa, was during her training.
Even if Lisa didn't always understand the whole obstacle course thing, she was there for her. And then there were her coaches, Faye and Jess, who sound amazing.
Total rock stars. They really helped her push past her comfort zone.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about physical training either. They really helped her develop that mental toughness, which is so key in those grueling races.
Okay, so we've covered the mindset, the support system, but what about the actual training? Was she hitting the gym 5 days a week? Did she hire a personal chef to fuel all that energy?
You'd be surprised. One of the things that really struck me was how accessible her approach to training was. We're not talking fancy gyms or expensive equipment here.
Wait, are you telling me she got Spartan ready using cinder blocks and buckets of salt?
You know it. Bounds is all about working with what you have, proving that you don't need a lot of fancy gear to get a great workout.
I love that. It completely debunks that excuse of, oh, I don't have the right equipment. She found ways to challenge herself anytime, anywhere.
Exactly. And that's such an empowering message, especially for people who might feel intimidated by those hardcore fitness environments. You could start small, right in your own home.
So simple, yet so effective. So she's got the right mindset, the support, the unconventional training methods down. What happens when she actually gets out there on the course?
That's where things get really interesting.
So she's there at the starting line, mud everywhere, people stretching, psyching themselves up. What's going through her head?
I imagine a mix of excitement and terror, right? Like, am I really doing this?
Probably a good dose of, what have I got myself into?
Definitely. But here's where it gets really interesting. Bounds describes experiencing this incredible sense of flow during those races.
Like being in the zone. Those moments where you're just completely absorbed in what you're doing and everything else fades away.
Exactly, that feeling of effortless action, total focus. And she found that while scrambling over obstacles and dodging barbed wire.
Wow, I can barely find that kind of focus in a yoga class, let alone a Spartan race.
It speaks to the power of pushing your limits, right?
Yeah.
It can unlock this mental clarity, this incredible sense of presence.
And it's not just about winning for her, is it? She talks about setting these personal goals, celebrating the small victories along the way.
It's about proving something to herself, not to anyone else. Remember that part where she finally conquers the monkey bar?
Oh yeah, it took her forever to master those.
But when she finally did it, you could just feel that surge of accomplishment radiating from the pages.
Those are the best moments.
Yeah.
But let's be real, it wasn't all sunshine and flow states for her, right? She had some pretty intense setbacks along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Injuries, exhaustion, self-doubt, you name it, she faced it head on. Remember that part where she gets attacked by wasps during a race?
No way, I think I would have completely lost it.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense scene in the book. But instead of panicking, she draws on this childhood memory of dealing with jellyfish stings. Uses mud to treat the stings.
Talk about thinking on your feet.
Right. She turned this terrifying situation into an opportunity to problem solve. And that seems to be a recurring theme with her. Those challenges, they didn't break her. They made her stronger, more resilient.
It's like she reframed those obstacles as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And here's something I found fascinating. She actually started to see her age not as a limitation, but as an advantage.
Most people would think getting older is a detriment in a physically demanding sport like that.
Right. But Bounds realized she had this wealth of experience to draw on, more wisdom, a deeper understanding of her body's limits.
And she wasn't afraid to ask for help when she needed it. She had her wife, Lisa, her coaches, even that cardiac nurse she met at a race.
That support system, it made all the difference because at the end of the day, we don't have to do any of this alone.
It's such a powerful reminder that we're capable of so much more than we think, no matter our age or our background. So here's the big question for our listeners. What's that one thing you've been putting off? That dream you've set aside because you thought, I'm too old, or I'm not ready, or what if I fail?
This deep dive with Gwendolyn Bounds, it's a call to action. What's one first you're willing to try today?
Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the journey and discovering what you're truly capable of. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive.